Hello and welcome to Dr. English channel, and thank you for watching us. Today's lesson is about there is and there are. There is and there are. We want to mention that something exists somewhere. Something or some objects are present somewhere. For example, there are some books on the desk, right? Or there are some students in the class. Well, we want to mention that. We want to talk about the existence of people, objects, things, etc., somewhere, right? Well, if you remember in one of the earlier episodes or lessons that we had together, I talked about nouns, right? And when we talk about nouns, we mean names of people, names of objects, names of animals, names of trees, right? And so on and so forth, right? And they come in two major forms, whether that noun is uncountable, like liquids, like gases, right? Liquids like water, tea, milk, coffee, okay? And some gases like, well, oxygen, air, hydrogen, they are also uncountable. And some other objects which are not liquids or, let's say, gases like bread, like soap. If you notice very carefully, even in your own local languages, well, you find out or you discover that they are also uncountable nouns, right? Well, like water, okay? The best example that I can give you. But there's also another branch of nouns that is called countable nouns. Well, countable nouns falls into two subcategories, singular and plural. Singular, plural. When we say singular, like a book, a marker, a student, a teacher, a whiteboard, right? Well, and plural, obviously, the plural form takes S at the end of their nouns in English, right? For example, books, markers, whiteboards, glasses, okay? Then, well, having known this, we move on to there is and there are. Well, for uncountable nouns, I gave you one classic example that I always give my students, and that is there is some water in the glass. There is some water because we can't count it. So obviously we use the word some. There is some water in the glass. Well, for singular countable nouns, we have to use a or an, like an egg, an orange, an umbrella. But a book, a marker, a teacher, a student, a chair, a desk. So there is a book on the desk. And the plural example will be there are some books. This some is a bit different from that some which we use for uncountable nouns. This sum refers to an amount of that uncountable noun. But this sum refers to the countable, well, we don't say amount, we say number of those objects, for example, or nouns, or people, okay? So there are some books, and note please, books, not book, after some books on the desk. Well, now that we know the affirmative forms or structures of each and every one of these examples that I gave you, well, we have the negative structures or negative forms. There isn't, you just add not or nt to, which is the contracted form of not, to the to be verbs is, right? Or are here, for example, nt, right? Well, I use the contracted forms. There isn't, well, note here. Some changes into any in negative structures and in questions. So we don't use some in negative structures and questions. Look, this is very important. Notice. So there isn't any water in the glass. Well, I didn't continue the sentence. I made sure that you already know it. And the question, well, is there any water in the glass? Okay, and the simple short answer would be yes, there is, no, there isn't. You already know this, I guess. Well, the singular countable example, there isn't a book on the desk, and the question form, is there a book on the desk? Yes, there is, no, there isn't. And the plural example, well, there aren't any books, again, notice, any books on the desk, and the question form would be, are there any books on the desk? Yes, there are, simple short answer. No, there aren't. Okay, we already know this, right? Well, I told you the example of some in affirmative examples, right? Well, some, like in uncountable example and plural example only. And the negative forms or the question forms would be any, right? Like this any, or this any, and that any, right? So if you want to mention something which is not neutral, some is a very neutral term, which we call determiner, right? Some is a kind of quantifier actually, okay? But it's very neutral. If you want to mention something a little or a lot, then you have to change some into that, okay? So for uncountable nouns, we either use, well, a little or sometimes little, okay? Or we use a lot of. Instead of using some, we say a lot of water, or a little water, or little water. For this one, also we can use, because it's countable, we don't use a little. We use a few or few. When I put something in parentheses, it means it's optional. Of course, there is a slight difference, but you'll get to know it later. I'll talk about it. Or the opposite of few would be many or a lot of, okay? Well, I'll talk about them later in great detail. So if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. Hit the like button. Thank you.